Okay, hello YouTubers. Welcome to another video about my notorious Beamer BMW RT1100 1997 with currently 57,000 miles. This is a follow-up on a first video that I put on YouTube in regard to the problem that I had with the bike. So let me quickly go back and retouch the story for you. What happened at the one night when I just bought a bike back in August. I took this bike for a ride, and the bike was working perfect until I gassed up the bike. At that point, when I gassed up the bike in one of these pilot gas station on Route 95 southbound to New York City, after getting back on the bike and starting the bike, I noticed actually that night I smelled the gas, but after getting back on the bike and after 30 minutes break, I tried to start the bike, and the bike was totally dead. So I took a video about that, and I would recommend that you watch part A of this video. And at that point, my prognosis was sort of right, because when I was starting the bike, I had a good crank, the batteries was running perfectly, I had a great juice, the light on the dash was all good, but the problem that was indicating was that the starter was making funny noise. And when I bought the bike from the first owner, he told me that he changed a lot of parts. One of them was the starter, and he was right about it. So to make the long story short, I had to bring the bike back, and I had to take an Uber back. So all in all, it cost me about $600 to rectify the issue and bring the bike back to the garage. When I dropped the bike, I noticed that there were gas coming out from the mufflers. So what happened, I opened up the left panel. As I opened up the left panel, there were two things I noticed. The first thing I noticed that actually three things I noticed. The first thing was that the starter cover was missing on the chassis. So there were no on the engine, but on the engine panel. So there were no starter cover on this, which I actually addressed that. I already purchased the starter cover on eBay for $23. I sanded it, painted it, and it looks great. I'm going to put it in today. The other thing is that when I opened up the starter, I took it out. I noticed two things. Number one, the starter was broken. So let me show you this. As you can see, the starter was broken. And my shout out to the owner, the previous owner. He was right. This was a new starter, and I think this looks like one of them starter that they sell on eBay. And by the way, this is the one I bought from eBay too. It's a great starter. It comes with a 45 days guarantee, manufacturer guarantee. But I noticed that, I'm going to show you this. I noticed that this piece was missing. So as you can see, this piece was near the flywheel, in the flywheel housing, right on the bottom. Let me turn it a little bit brighter. And this piece was missing. So I wondered why the starter was broken. So I went back to watch some videos, and finally I came across my friend's video, which I always admire, and this guy is a genius. He's a surgeon on BMW engines up to 2055, and this is a guy that a lot of you guys know him, and his name is Chris Harris from Affordable Beamer Shop. So I watched one of the Chris video, and on one of these videos that he talks about a starter, changing the starter on this oil head engine. He actually refers to one little metal piece that would be going in here, and it sits in the engine, and that metal piece is actually a supportive piece to prevent the starter, in the case that these two screws are loose. It prevents the starter to basically do not twist and tweak when you're starting it up. So I come to this conclusion that there were two things happening why this starter was broken. Two reasons. And reason number one, that Reason number one was that the starter was not torqued properly, and the guy did not use any anti-seize lubrication. And reason number two, which was the most important reason in my opinion, was that that little piece of a metal, that little round piece of a metal, was actually stuck into the starter. It was not sitting on the body, it's not sitting on the engine. So what I did, I pulled that little piece. There's a little tiny piece of metal here. I put that little round piece and I inserted into the engine block, make sure it's sitting properly. And then actually what I did, to be honest with you, I know some of you might not like it, I put a little crazy glue on it, so that piece is always stuck in the engine block, because that's where it should be. And after that thing was all nice and dry, the next day I installed the new starter, as Chris Harris was my friend was recommending. I put the anti-seize lubrication, a copper seize lubrication on the screws, and I tied them up to I believe 16 foot-pounds, and that's what a torque setting is. It's about, I think it is about the 26 Newton meter, and that's because translation of the changing the units to become to 16 foot-pounds of torque for that starter to be set. And meanwhile I did that, I went ahead and I cleaned the I took the gear lever off. I cleaned all those ball joints. There were a lot of dirt and gum stuck in those. I cleaned those off, and I actually ordered a replacement rubber for this off the internet. It's going to be a Honda part replacement because I couldn't find a BMW part. So, and actually another thing that I'm going to tell you is that when you do this, now this is about this the gear lever, but it is that they put a very cheap spongy rubber here to prevent dust to get into this little places. I couldn't find those, so I went ahead and I make myself some silicone cover that I'm going to show you later when I put it in there. And it's something that you all can do. If you don't know how to make it, let me know, and I can probably make some and send it to you. Anyway, so about 3 weeks ago, after the initial repair that the first video covers, I was able to get the bike back on the road. Then I took the bike for inspection, and it passed the inspection. The next day after the inspection, I gas up this guy all the way up again. I filled up the tank, parked the bike, went back home, come back the next day trying to ride the bike to a meeting, and out there the bike do the same exact thing. It starts, but the engine is not turning. So I thought that actually I might have a faulty starter relay. By the way, so you know, the starter relay is this, the yellow one here on the box here, the starter relay. And I was suspected that this Techlusion injector control might have an issue, but I find out that this works good. I checked all the connections and everything was fine. The battery is also a brand new Westco battery. So I had problems starting the bike back up again. And it's still smelling gas. So what happened, I realized by reading some forums, going through some forums, and also watching again Chris Harris videos where he talks about the charcoal canisters and all the stuff in these BMWs. I realized that it might be I might have some hydrolocking issue. So what is the hydrolocking issue? Hydrolocking is whenever you get fluid into your pistons, into your cylinders, and once you start to crank the engine, once you start to basically turn the engine, there is so much, because since there's so much fluid in that cylinder, in any of your cylinders, the piston, the engine would not have power to turn it. Thus, your engine freezes. Your engine becomes overpressured, so it would not turn. And if you keep doing this, you can actually damage your starter, or you might, in my case, I actually melted my negative pool on my battery because of overloading the starter was overloading the battery. almost lost the $200 battery again. So what happened is that so by reading that, I came back and I actually removed my spark plugs on the left side, and I cranked the engine by my feet. So basically I put it on a fourth or third gear, and by pressing the wheel in the back, I was able to crank the engine without the spark plug. And when I did that, I saw the gas was gushing out of the cylinders, and especially on the left side. I had almost about could say 8 or 9 ounces of gas in that cylinder. On the right side I was okay. On the right side I didn't have much fluid. I had some, but not much. So what I did, I turned the engine a couple of times, made sure that all the fluids are out of the cylinder. I let the spark plug, the whole spark plug wires unconnected in order to dry the cylinders and everything. So again, I went back to my friend Chris Harris. Again, my hats off to Chris Harris. This guy is again genius. I recommend all the BMW owners to watch his videos. And I start to look exactly how to remove the charcoal canisters. So basically this is the problem with this bike, and that's why I was not able to run this bike properly, and I had all these problems. The problem is that whenever you fill up this bike, it would back up to the charcoal canister in here, and I can see it's like full of gas in here right now. Okay, I'm already in a way to remove this anyway. So so what happens is that you have the gas coming into the canisters, and then you have one more overfill one here. So you have 2 wires here that comes into the canisters. These 2 wires that coming in, they're going to be cut completely, and you're going to so these are directly goes to the tank, and one of them is the vent. The other thing is that from the canister it goes up to a vacuum port right here. And what happens is that whenever you turn the engine on, whenever the bike works, and the additional fluid and the volatile fluids and additional gas would go into the chamber, into your port here, and it would burn out. It goes right through and it will get burned out. So in order to remove the charcoal canisters, what do you guys need to do? Again, you can also watch Chris Harris. He explains more in depth. Obviously he's the doctor, not me. What you will need to do is that there is one screw here in the back that holds a clamp. You remove that, and you go ahead and cut this one from the port, which goes right under your seat. And what you need to do, you need to basically blind this by either try to seal it, or as Chris explains, you put a dead end port in this, or you can actually, I want to put in a screw in here and clamp it shut. And then we're going to go ahead and cut these 2 wires that come from the engine, these 2. Let me see, I'm kind of left-handed, so let me make sure. And this is this. We're going to cut this. I'm pretty sure it's going to gas gushing out of this, maybe, I don't know. And this one, and basically let it loose. I cut this one a little bit lower here. I know I should cut the other one and let this, so. And now, let me see. Okay. Jesus, what is this? Okay, that's cut, that's cut. And we're gonna cut this one here. So as you can see, there are 3 connections coming to your charcoal canisters. I'm gonna just cut this a little bit hard because I'm holding the phone, but let me see. This is the first one. Okay, and this is this one here. No more charcoal canisters, piece of junk. So this piece of shit, guys, sorry my French, it cost me a lot of money, and as you can see, it's just nothing, just a piece of nonsense thing. Okay, now so this is out, and actually the bike looks much better. You know, there's no, imagine this ugly little thing was stuck in here. Whenever you drive like that, looks like a the place for newspaper boy. I actually wondered what it was first, but that's what it was. So now let's go back here to the wires. So this wire that goes on top here, this was the wire that was cut in here. That goes to the vacuum port. So we're gonna I'm trying to see if we can. Okay, let me see. We're gonna go and pull this out. Pull this sucker out. Okay. Now that's done. Now this other piece is done. Now let's see. Okay guys, you see? Now now you have left with two wires coming here from your engine. Okie dokie. And it comes right here. Now this is what happens. The only consequence of removing the charcoal canisters is that whenever in hot day, now this is based on what Chris says, whenever in hot day you park your car, your motorcycle, and if your gas is filled up to the top, you will have some gas leaking out of this, coming out of this, which is fine. So in order to prevent this, I would say that do not top off your tank, always stay behind. I'll always go to 3/4. Usually I fill it up all the way, but don't do it. Go to 3/4 and you should be fine. So finally the culprit was these charcoal canisters, because again what was happening, I was filling up the gas. 2 times I fill up this tank. The gas was coming to the charcoal canisters, getting sucked through the vacuum port here, going all the way to the engine. Okay, and entering this port here, and the basically entering this to the throttle valve or whatever they call that. And it would basically, at one point I had a seized type of, felt like a seized engine, but it was hydrolocking, and another point it entered my muffler. So the first time I had a lot of gas, almost about a gallon of gas emptied through the muffler. So but this time, since the bike was not moved too much, the only gas that I found was inside the engine, and hopefully this will rectify the issue. So I would suggest that you remove that. If any of you guys have a flat engine or I'm sorry, you have a boxer engine like this and it's older model, I would recommend that you do that. Based on recommendation, at this point you also have to check your fuel filter, but I'm not going to do that because I know the fuel filter is new. It's the end of a season here almost, and I want to ride a little bit of this bike. Once I take the bike off the road, I will open the side panels again, like almost 35 screws. I open all up again, and I will take the fuel filter out, and I will put a new fuel filter that I ordered for $18.50 from Beamer Boneyard. Other than that, guys, everything else is cool. I'm gonna put a cover on the starter soon, like tonight, and I'm gonna get the bike back together, and hopefully that would starts the issue. So if you have any problem starting the bike, if you know you have a good battery, if you know that your starter is good, and if you know there is no other issues with your bike, as I know there was not any other issues, because I was the former owner guaranteed me that those things were done. He was a very decent person. Then you will know that you have some hydrolocking on your pistons, and especially if you have the charcoal canister left. The other point that you learn from this is make sure when you put a new starter, as Chris suggesting, which is he's very right, do not forget the little pin that it should be there. If you open your starter, if you buy a used bike like I did, and you see that there is no pin, locking pin or engine connecting pin in that starter, go ahead and get one, because if anything happens with your starter, gets losing the torque, or you don't put it right, you're gonna have a broken starter like this. So here we go. I have a perfect starter with a broken tip, and it's basically a garbage. I mean, I'll just keep it for parts maybe. And thank you for watching this video. Please comment, and please watch part number 1 on this that's when I made that part 1. By the way, I didn't know exactly what's going on. And thank you for all of you watching and subscribing. Thank you guys, and I love to read your comments. You have a wonderful day. Thank you.